All right, Mike, if you're ready, we are ready. We're going to call this meeting to order, full board of the county commissioners. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So please rise and recite it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 3, invocation by Commissioner Myjack. Commissioner Myjack. Commissioner Myjack.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Can now, thank you.
Okay, so I'm not much for invocations, but I just would say just a few words. Let's just think about all the people that our country has lost with this virus over the last couple months. Let's keep them in our hearts, their families also in our hearts as well, in prayers. And really think about the first responders, the nurses and the doctors, everyone who's involved in this, and we're in this all together. So let's just think about them for a minute. And thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Item number 4, adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt today's agenda?
So moved.
I have Carabelli. I have Commissioner Carabelli and Commissioner Haw. The first 2 names I heard. Please vote.
That motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Item number 5, approval of the minutes dated April 30th, 2020. Can I get a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Sager.
I have Marv Sager, and I had a so move, but I don't have a name with it.
Brown.
Commissioner Brown. All right. Everybody, please vote.
That motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Item number 6, public participation. Most of you know, but for those of you that don't, public participation, the first one is only about items on the agenda. You would have 5 minutes to speak. Again, only on items on the agenda. If you are on the line and wish to speak, please unmute by hitting *6. And the first person I hear, I will take for public participation. So are there any members of the public wishing to speak? And as always with these remote meetings, we'll give a little extra time. Also, anybody that might be on the line on the chat, I'm sure I will hear from Mike or someone if there is someone there that is wishing to speak. Number 2, any items of the public or members of the public wishing to speak? Again, *6. Third and final time. Any members of the public? All right. With that, we'll close public participation. There is a second public participation at the end if you wish to participate. Item number 7. Well, I'd say we don't have items for this, but we do have items coming up from the executive. So I guess our correspondence is going to come at a later time. So we'll close item number 7. And we'll go right to item number 8. The first item is 8A. The Detroit Institute of Arts 2019 Annual Report. I am sure that we have Dave Flynn on the line, and I'm not sure if we have Salvador or not. I haven't been able to check. So Dave, are you there?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Hi, Dave.
I am too there, Mr. Commissioner. Salvador here.
Thank you. Dave, the floor is yours.
We're going to tee up the conversation today while we get the presentation up and running. I think Julie is doing that now. But we've been in front of the County Commission and the Art Authority many times over the past 3 or 4 years, especially since Salvador has become director. And what we've done in the community is we've done a ton of research in terms of what people want in terms of our programming, how we can message to county residents so they can use our millage services. You know, instead of just speculating what they want, we went to voters across the area. We went to residents, and we went to the schools and talked to superintendents and teachers and parents. We went to the senior community and wanted to really find out what programs are relevant. What can the DIA offer that's impactful to people in our local community? And we spent a ton of time and resources doing that because we knew that that was a model that would work in the long term. And today we're here to give our 2019 annual report. And in every single category of our service agreements that we have in our county, 2019 was the best year for free general admissions, for student field trips, for senior group visits, as well as probably our most impactful year in community partnerships. And that work started a long time ago when Salvador dedicated himself and the museum staff to go out there and find something for everybody at the museum. That's why he's tried different exhibitions like hip hop and baseball and Star Wars, Great Lakes photography, on top of the classics like Monet and Church and Van Gogh, which he can talk about a little bit later. And so I know you have a busy agenda, so why don't we hop right into the presentation now. Is it up on the screen, Julie? And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that with us today, not only is Salvador, the director of the museum, we have Christine Kloster, our executive director of marketing and communications, Julie McFarland, who does a terrific job in public affairs that puts these presentations together and makes sure our numbers are accurate, as well as Judith Dolkart, who is relatively new to the DIA, and Salvador will introduce her later in the presentation. So I don't see a presentation up on the screen, so I'll start walking through it, and hopefully it'll pop up. In terms of free admissions in 2019, in 2016 we had 47,000. This year we had 62,000 free general admissions, as well as 3,500 people who came to the DFT from Macomb County. When we get into our school trips and our field trips, we had the best year we've ever had, and we had over 17,000 Macomb County students come down to the museum because we created systemic partnerships with Lance Cruz and Chippewa, and we've had one with Utica and with Warren Consolidated, as well as East Point and several others in the North End. And we also brought down 600 teachers to the museum for professional development that counts towards their recertification, so they can bring those critical thinking skills back to the classroom on a daily basis. And so if you think about that, we had about 12,000 students come in 2016, and this year we had 17,200. For our senior program, we always struggled at the beginning in Macomb to reach our agreement of 35 trips. And in 2016, we had 27 trips. In the past 2 years, we've had 67 and 68 trips come down to the museum. And the program we also offer is we know that every senior can't come down to the museum for mobility or whatever other reasons. And so we go out to different senior centers and give talks on art, and it's called Behind the Scenes. And we did over 20 of those in 2019. We continue our successful Inside Out program that puts reproductions out in the community. We were happy that we were able to work with the Secretary of State office, and all the branches in the 3 counties are now going to have reproductions in their offices. We continue to find new and innovative ways to offer walking tours, as well as the project that you see in Mount Clemens, that's Macomb Art City. And in front of the vacant and non-vacant buildings, there's a walking tour of some of the highlights of the museum, which is really exciting. In terms of community partnerships, we've really doubled down in terms of what we've done for our mural projects, which have been very successful. We have one great one in downtown Romeo. We had one in Sterling Heights that we worked with the police department on, which we've talked about, and the one in Warren Recreational Center, where they have a mural by their pool where you have tons of families and seniors and people going throughout the day. We've had a highlight in terms of the spending that we've done in all the different categories that we had. We usually print out our community engagement report, but obviously not many of the offices that we send it to are open now. And so what we're going to do in the next week or two is have a mass distribution of the presentation I had put together in one document that's going to be sent to all community leaders, elected officials, schools, superintendents, higher education, chambers of commerce, etc. And hopefully they can pass that along in their network to show the success that we've had at the museum. Obviously, we can always do a better job, and we're always looking for new ways to improve. There's nothing more that we'd want to do than go back to March 1st and continue the success in our free admission in schools and seniors and working with local nonprofits. But Salvador will give a highlight of the innovative ways we're trying to connect to different communities now in a COVID-19 world. It's not always easy and it doesn't happen overnight, but our teams are working extremely hard to reach out to the communities and schools and find a way where we can be impactful in a virtual sense. And so with that, before I pass it along to Salvador for our director's update, did anybody have any questions on 2019?
Dave, it looks like Commissioner Drolet is on there. Commissioner Drolet, do you have a question for Dave, or are you just waiting for the whole presentation to be done?
Well, I think my question is either for David or Salvatore. I can either ask either or.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, David, Salvatore, thanks both for the presentation. Greatly appreciate it. And I'm very pleased to see that the number of Macomb County admissions went up so substantially from the 47,587 in 18 to the 61,337 in 19, which is something along the lines of a third, improvement in that, along those lines, 33% or so. My question is, how much of that improvement is due to structured programs like bringing of field trips and senior structured events, bus trips and so forth, and how much is, I guess you could say, people not part of a structured program, but just getting in their vehicle and driving down to the DIA? Is there any way of knowing that?
There is. I think the rough estimate I can give you right now is about a third is part of the structured programs and 2/3 are just residents coming down to the museum. And we didn't have any ticketed exhibitions in 2019. And so, everything was free and Salvador raised the money for those programs. And so, there was a diversity in terms of offering, and perhaps that's what got people down. But really reaching out to different communities and asking them to spread the word in different networks has really resulted in more people knowing about the DIA and coming to the DIA.
Hey, were there any particular exhibits in 19 that you felt were more responsible? Were there surges in visitation or anything along those lines?
We had Humble and Human, which was an unbelievable exhibition with Ralph Wilson, who owned the Buffalo Bills. Mm-hmm. And that got extended several months, and that was a huge success, as well as our Ofrendas, which continues each year. It started off as a small exhibition, and now I think it's open for close to 6 weeks and gets a ton of visitation.
Okay. And I guess the next question I have might be answered in your next part of your presentation, which is, what are we going to do about the automotive themed presentation that was planned in conjunction with the auto show in June, and given the current situation that we're in with COVID?
Salvador will address how he's had to renegotiate the different exhibitions, especially Van Gogh, but also how we've pivoted the Detroit car design show as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, David.
Commissioner, I have Commissioner Brown up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, it was reported that there were campaign finance violations and fees owed by the DIA committee. Have those been cleared up?
That's the first I've heard of that, and I'm not sure that's accurate. I can get back to you when I check with the chief financial officer and the treasurer of the committee, but I do not believe I've heard that.
Okay. Why don't you take the check of that, because we're all proud of the DIA and what you're doing. We don't want any cloud on it because something wasn't followed. So
I will
Thank
follow
you.
up on that this afternoon and get an answer back to you, but I do not believe that's accurate.
all right. Thank you, sir. Have a good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else up at this time. So Dave, if you're done, I think Salvador will be next.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dave, for the presentation, and to Julie McFarland for putting together all the data. You know, collecting all this data is a big job, because it really allow us to translate the great work that the DI teams put together throughout the year and the experiences into numbers, so they are understandable for everyone. I have to say that when I go into Macomb County, those numbers are translated into friendship and goodwill from the community, as I have encountered in the 5 years that I've been director. And every year is more and more, and I'm just grateful to have Macomb County be so receptive and friendly to our work, as well as the great pleasure that it means for all of us to work with the Arts Authority in Macomb County, who really is a partner in everything that we do. We have on the call Judith Dahlkart as well. She is in charge as our Deputy Director of Curatorial Education and Programs moving forward, and will be playing a very important role with all our programs for educations with the seniors, the community partnerships, as well as all the visitor experience in the building. Just talking about the building, you know that the DI has been closed since March 13, and we've been following the guidance of the governor and the advice of the medical authorities and the CDC. And right now, we are following the stay home, stay order of the governor until May 28th. The museum is closed until then, and all our programs have been canceled through the end of June. Our exhibitions have been rescheduled or postponed. The Van Gogh exhibition will now happen in 2022. That is a great year to have this exhibition, because it will be the 100-year anniversary of the acquisition of our Van Gogh self-portrait, which is the first painting by Van Gogh to be acquired by a museum in the United States. These exhibitions are very expensive. They are not paid by the millage. These exhibitions are paid through fundraisings and the sponsorships that we are able to secure. And I have to share with all of you the good news that all the sponsorships that we have for this exhibition have continued to be secured for 2022, as well as many of the loans that we have confirmed for the show. At the time, last March, we had 70 loans confirmed, and right now we have most of them confirmed, and we're going to work in the next year and a half to continue adding to that list, so we can bring to the DI the best exhibition of Van Gogh for 2022 around the world. And the car exhibition, as Commissioner Drolet was mentioning before, has been postponed. We are opening in November 15. The exhibition will be installed in part of our contemporary galleries, and it will be open through the end of June of 2021. And that would allow for the exhibition to coincide with the auto show at the tail end of the show. So it will be the first time that the auto show will be open in the month of June, but we will still have our exhibition up, and we will take advantage of the synergies and the visits that come to Detroit from all over the world to see the auto show, so we can invite them and come and see the exhibition at the DI. In terms of loans, we have secured all our loans, In terms of the sponsorships, as I mentioned before, these exhibitions are really, really expensive, but we secured a number of sponsorships that allow us for us to cover the show. And this will continue to support the exhibition moving forward. So I'm very, very, very happy to say that the exhibition will be free for the residents of Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb counties. And I think it will be a great gift for the entire community after this really tough times that we are all living with the COVID-19 crisis. We are also pivoting all our programs with the schools, with the seniors, with our community partners into our website and online experience. And if you have been recently into our website, we have redesigned the website in a way that people can understand what programs we have to offer for schools, for seniors, for community partners, as well as for free admission. I hope you find it entertaining. There's a lot of things going on. We send an email every Monday called At Home with the DIA, where we feature our new videos and experiences that people can actually enjoy online, from activities for the seniors to art making for the schools and students, etc., etc. And all the teams are working very hard to continue to provide great activities and to continue to be relevant to the residents of Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb County. Last but not least, we are already working on our plans to reopen the museum. As I mentioned, the museum will be closed through the end of May. In June, we will start bringing some members of the staff into the building. We are not going to open the building for staff and the visitors until it's safe. We need a safe workspace. We need a safe gallery space. And in that sense, we are working together with a consultant out of Ann Arbor, NSF International, and as well as with the other nonprofit institutions in the cultural district, so we can come out with a good plan and open the entire cultural district at the same time, providing, as I mentioned, a safe visitor experience to all the residents of Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb County. This is my report, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Salvador. As usual, great job. I have a few commissioners up. So Andre Duge, Commissioner Duge, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Salvatore, terrific job. It's always a pleasure to go down and visit the DIA, and you've made a tremendous difference in growing the DIA into a world-class exhibition that it is. The only thing that I'd like you to take a look at, and possibly the board, is getting a little more representation from Macomb County on the board of directors at the DIA. I understand there's one. I'd like to see at least two, possibly three. And if that could be done, I think that would be very good for Macomb County and for the DIA. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, for the suggestion. We are already working with the Arts Authority in Macomb County to identify candidates for our board from Macomb County, and I have to share with all of you that there are 2 or 3 in the pipeline, and very soon we'll be announcing them. The candidates for the board at the DIA are announced in November, so let's wait a little bit until then, and I'll share with all of you the good news.
And Salvador, to touch upon that, Commissioner Duge, we also have asked Jenny Callens, who's the chair of the Art Authority, and I believe on this meeting today, to be part of the governing and nominating committee for Macomb representation.
Terrific. Thank you very, very much. And hopefully the DIA will open up with no problems and keep growing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you. I have Commissioner Drolet on the second round, it appears. Commissioner Drolet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you again, Salvatore, and congratulations on expanding the number of visitors from Macomb County again, which I think is a terrific statistic. I just had a question on the public art exhibits. You mentioned that one in Romeo, for example, and I believe at a previous meeting you had mentioned that the intention is to do more, potentially substantially more, of the public art exhibits. And I wanted to know if I'm correct in that. And second, where we stand. Will Utica be getting public art, like a permanent public art exhibit, or Sterling Heights, or any other communities?
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Drolet. Our plan is to continue expanding on the mural project. It's been very successful. It is really very well received in the community. We can see the impact. It's a long-lasting presence of the DIA in the community, and as well as a great way to connect the museum.
How many years?
To connect with it. So
great.
Commissioner, okay. I was going to say, Commissioner Sauger, if you would mute yourself until you're up. Commissioner,
Okay.
You're still up.
The plan is to have 2 mural projects per year in different areas of Macomb County, and we are going to work on this plan, and we'll be certainly happy to share it with all of you. I mean, this is something that was agreed some months ago with the Arts Authority because of the great success it has, and we're just very keen on doing it. So I see that in the next 12 years we'll be doing at least 2 per year or 3 per year. I don't know exactly the numbers right now, but you make the multiplication. It's going to really bring a lot of great things and great art into Macomb County.
Well, thank you, Sal. I appreciate it. I do believe it has a component of it that's more lasting in some respects than bringing in a painting or exhibit to a community and then having it there for a month or two and then taking it back and redistributing it. Whereas this is sort of a permanent presence, I think that people can appreciate, enjoy, and adds a permanent component to their downtown or the value of their community. So I appreciate that. Just a quick last question: is this program specifically just for murals, or is there other other elements of art that could also be incorporated, statues or things like that?
So far, it is designed for mural, but we are open to suggestions and ideas about how we can continue improving it. I mean, I see it very similar as our Inside Out project, or the reproduction project that we had open in Mount Clemens in the last February. So when we had different reproductions of works of art of the collection throughout different stores in Mount Clemens. So for the moment, just to answer your question, is designed for murals, but we're open for suggestions on how we can improve it. And just by using your words, the DIA is very interested in having a permanent presence, as you say, in Macomb County.
Thank you so much, Salvatore. Appreciate your report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Drolet, we've actually done 2 sculpture projects as part of the public art. So we predominantly do murals, but we have done sculptures in the past.
All right. I'll take that as a appreciative add-on to Commissioner Drolet's answer. Commissioner Sauger, you're up next.
Yeah, what I like to second the idea with Audrey Duge, but we've been trying this ever since I think Dave Flynn got on the board to get more representation down there. And why we only have one, I'll never know unless you can answer that. What's the holdup? Thank you.
Well, we are we are adding more in the next opportunity. So there is no holdup. We are just doing this as quick as possible, and we're working very closely with the Arts Authority. And as my colleague Dave Flynn mentioned, Jenny Callens, the chair of the Arts Authority, is part now of the governance and nominating committee of the DIA, where we discuss. There is always an item about board members from Macomb County. So it's happening. We're just following our policies, and we announce board members or are selected in November. So then we will announce them with other board members that will be joining the DIA team for the next years.
Okay, Marv, too, also, I'd like to say that
Thank you.
I'm sure with this last, thanks, Marv, with the last millage proposal, I know that we have kind of negotiated some of this into that also, so I'm happy to hear that we're going to be seeing that take place come this November. So I don't have any other speakers, Salvador. I just want to add on to what Commissioner Duge said about you making it world class. I believe it was kind of world class. You've upped that ante, and you've also, what was I think more important, is you've made it regular class. You've made it, you made the regular person appreciate going down to the DIA and realize that it's for everybody, not just for the people who are a little more well-to-do. So all of us appreciate that. So Dave and Salvador, if you have anything to add to it, I'll give you the floor at the end, and then we'll get moving to the next item.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you for your words, and I'm going to ask your permission to use your quote as we become a regular class museum, because I think it's very well taken. I love it. This is about education and learning and spreading the great things that we have in a region, and everybody has the right to learn, and the DIA has that on the top of its mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Salvador.
Thank you.
Great hearing from you. So we probably should have done this first, but can I get a motion to receive and file 8A?
So moved, Carabelli.
Mr. Carabelli. I have a second.
Support from Kraft.
Second from Commissioner Kraft. Please vote.
That motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. And we'll do this one in the correct order. 8B, can I get a motion to approve or receive and file the presentation of the Finance Department?
So moved.
I'll make that
Carabelli.
motion, Lucido.
Okay, Lucido, and one other name, please, for a second. Sorry, I didn't hear any of it. I heard a bunch of people talking about your name. Carabelli? Thank you. All right, item 8B, Finance Quarterly Report. Mr. Smigiel, I believe you are with us, and you're up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Can everyone hear me okay at this volume?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. Before you, you have the quarterly financial report for the first quarter of 2020. Things were going well in the first quarter. Our revenues were tracking well against budget, and my comments will be primarily with the general fund. We were also seeing some savings on the expense side of the ledger, primarily in the area of personnel. As you know, prisoner population is down quite substantially at the jail. So we're saving money on overtime. We're not filling positions and those sorts of things. So again, our revenues were tracking well against budget through the end of March, even though we started, the effects of the pandemic were started to be felt in the middle of March. So I don't want to spend too much time on the first quarter because things weren't in, pretty good shape then. And looking forward, we will certainly have some impact on our revenues from the coronavirus. Not as substantially as you may think, though. Many of our larger revenue items are affected by disruptions in the economy a year, maybe 2 years out. Think of property taxes and things of that nature. So at this time, we're expecting an impact on revenue about 3.5% for the year. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but again, if you think about it, we did an analysis in my office and we looked at the top 23 line items in the general fund on the revenue side. And 14 of those line items, representing 85% of the revenues, we feel are insulated from the effects of the coronavirus this year. And again, think of property taxes, dispatch contracts, patrol contracts, rents, liquor tax, for example, those sorts of things. On the flip side of that, the other 15% are mostly fee-based things. Court fees, restaurant licenses, interest revenue, commission or commissary commissions at the jail, those sorts of things. Those we're anticipating anywhere from a 25 to 50% impact for the remainder of the year or through the end of the year. So when you get down to the bottom line, it's about a 3.5% impact for this particular year. Two of the major items I want to talk about that are, one's insulated, if you want to refer to it that way, one maybe not so much. And that the one that's insulated I want to talk about is our largest item, which is property taxes. And of course, we know property taxes are set for the year. We'll collect those revenues. Whatever's not necessarily collected by or from payments from the residents will be reimbursed next spring by the Delinquent Tax Revolving Fund. We had a good year in terms of increases in taxable value. Those went up about 4.6%. We had another reduction through the Headley rollback. The net effect will be about a 3.6% increase in 2020. We budgeted 3.5, so we're pretty much right there. There's a 29% differential between assessed values and taxable values, so that gives us some downside protection going forward. That's one of the, I guess if you want to refer to it as maybe a good thing of Prop A, is it gives you some downside protection. Revenue sharing is the one that concerns me. And of course, the state is always analyzing their revenue sources, and that's always a very vulnerable revenue item for us. The state has indicated thus far that we will be made whole through the end of September of this year. Their new fiscal year starts October 1st. I'm expecting 25 or maybe even a 50% reduction for their fiscal year starting October, which will impact us by about half of that for this calendar year here. So for next year, I'm thinking 25 to 50%. We won't know for sure until the state sets their budget. That's sort of my comments on the revenue side. We're also experiencing savings on the expense side of the ledger. I mentioned salaries and benefits through the first quarter. Those savings and benefits continue to accrue to us through this particular pay period tomorrow. And, you know, we don't know how we're going to end the year, of course, but we're continually monitoring our revenues and our expenses very closely here in my office. And as we move into the next 2 or 3 months, we'll have a much better idea how we're going to be able to, you know, weather the storm, so to speak. But at this point in time, things are not necessarily as doom and gloom as you might expect. Again, we're not impacted by income taxes and casino revenues and parking fees and things that maybe the cities and Wayne County, for example, are impacted by. So that's the extent of my comments. So if anybody has any questions, I'm more than willing to answer them.
Okay, Thank you. I have Commissioner Drollet up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Steve. I think you may have just answered. I've heard stories in the paper, in the media rather, about the deficits that the city of Detroit is running as a result of COVID, or Wayne County, and that sort of thing. So I was, concerned what our impact might be. Is it just like the casino revenues, or what is it that's causing places like Wayne County to suffer substantially larger impact, negative financial impact during the pandemic, whereas we at this point don't appear to have that initial substantial hit?
My understanding as it pertains to Wayne County is they receive parking revenues from the airport.
I see.
And so,
Okay, so
there's so far less travelers and parking revenue. That's what makes sense to me. The city obviously has income taxes and casino revenues and parking revenues and, those sorts of things that we don't have. So we're, in my opinion, in a little bit better position just based on the nature of our business here.
Would it be fair to say that we are where we expected to be at this point when we made the budget, a little ahead because we've saved money on certain elements that were unexpected because, personnel costs or lower jail overtime and so forth, or, where are we as a percent of where we expected to be?
I would say your assessment is accurate, Commissioner, in the sense that when we started the year, we had 800 or 900 folks in the jail. Now we have about 300. Overtime is very, very low at the sheriff department. And again, our personnel expenses are about 96 to 97% of budget so far. And we have already, that's over and above the 3% turnover factor we have built into the budget. So I think we're well ahead there. I can't really tell you on other expenses, but I would expect things like utilities to be under budget because most of our workforce is working from home. So the lights aren't on necessarily. Folks aren't using the water, going to the restroom, that sort of thing. If you think about it, our fuel expense should be down because gas prices are down. We're not transporting prisoners as we were before. There's not that many people in the jail again, so I would expect our jail medical bills from people going to the hospital should be, less than they were a year before. But we need to assess that over the next couple of more months.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinfeld. With Leonetti on deck. Yes.
Okay. Steve, obviously we were hoping that there'd be some get together and discussion about what we'd like to accomplish this year. And obviously that's not going to be the focus now. I think the focus is going to be for next year's budget I'm talking about. The focus is going to be obviously getting through next year as best as we can. And also I'm concerned about looking down the road. We don't have a property value issue now, and people are saying we're not going to have one. I'm not 100% convinced, given the unemployment, that is actually the case. So I don't know if you're already working on next year's budget, but is there any chance we can get it earlier this year so that we can get a handle on what you're dealing with?
I'm not sure we can get it any earlier. I mean, we had some difficulty getting it last year, and now we're working remote and things of that nature. I mean, we can do our best, but I can't really promise anything earlier than we had last year.
Well, we used to get it like a lot earlier, and then it changed, last year. We got it awfully late. I was just hoping we could do it in a way that is a smooth transition and we don't have this last minute thing that seems to happen every year. That's what I try to achieve every year. But this year I'd like to be able to have some discussions about concerns down the road too. And I don't know if you guys are going to slow down a little bit on capital projects or anything, but it's not just next year and this year. We don't know what the next couple of years are going to do. And I'm very concerned about that. I just wanted to put it on your radar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner Leonetti.
Hi. Hey, Steve. I asked some of the questions that I was going to ask were sort of along the line of what Veronica had just asked you. I assume, usually in June, you guys send out the stuff to the different department heads on what they're going to request for their budget in 2021. And I assume the administration is reminding them of what we're going through, right? I assume it's going to be kind of a unique budget season coming up because of all these different variables. On the one hand, we're spending less on certain things, but then on the other hand, we're not bringing in as much revenue. So I assume, and I may be asking a question that's kind of already known, but I assume the department heads are being advised by administration that, understand things look a little different going forward, right? Is that true or accurate?
That's an accurate assessment. We haven't really put a number to it, but we are talking about the impacts going forward, primarily as the revenues. Again, I think Commissioner Kleinfeld mentioned it, next year, even the year after, we're going to have some impacts that we need to think about, and we are thinking about. So it is going to be a little bit of a different budget season for various reasons, but we're on top of it, and we're in the process of developing numbers as we speak.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve. I know it's a lot of work just in a normal year, and a lot of stuff that we have to deal with in a normal year. So you got your work cut out for you even more now. So appreciate it, and keep up the good work. Okay. Take care. Thank you. Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you. Let's see. I don't have anybody else on the list. So we had a motion to receive and file, so please vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I got a note that Commissioner Brown was wishing to speak, but you weren't on my list. Commissioner Brown, do you need to add anything or have any other questions maybe before Commissioner or before Finance Director leaves?
No, thank you. My question was answered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was answered.
Thanks. Okay. Item number 9, COVID-19 state of emergency. We have an update on the COVID-19 state of emergency. I think A and B are motions to receive and file. So before we start that, can I get a motion to receive and file 9A and B?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Carabelli.
Thank you.
Seconded by Haw.
Second by Commissioner Haw. All right. Vicki Wilbur, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. We're COVID-19.
Great. Welcome. And the floor is yours.
Very good. Thank you. I know we have a lot of agenda items before you today, and we thank you for your time and patience in getting those items before you. I really want to thank Crystal and Mike as well in your office for processing all of those through. Again, I know it was a lot of information and very time consuming. As I stated in an email I sent to the commissioners and BOC staff last week, what I plan to do in the update today is kind of cover all of the other agenda items and kind of do all that in one fell swoop. And then we can take questions at the end of the presentation. And of course, as you go through the individual items, I can give a short update again and take questions as we move through each of those. We have a large team on the call as well. So the traditional people that you would expect are on the call, from Bill Rodella. You saw Steve, Vicki Rad, Brandon Lewis, JP's here, and Andy McKinnon. So if there are any questions, we should be able to cover all of them for you today. So basically, I'm going to start with the EOC report that is in your packet. And then I'm just going to highlight some areas and move through that report. If you look at where we're at as the day of the report, this is report is from April 11th through May 15th. On May 15th, we were at day 65. Today, we're at day 71. And really, overall, most of our operations have continued since we first started with COVID. We've not changed a lot. We've expanded a lot of programs. There's been a lot of variations as we move through a pandemic, and we're trying to be nimble as we move through this process, not only for the community that we serve, but also all of our employees and our departments. Just two items of note that were essentially new during this period is we did create a Macomb County Preparedness and Response Plan that I'll cover a little more in depth later on. But I also wanted to mention too, one of the big items is the work that we've done through F&O and with our departments in starting to do walkthroughs and to see what changes those departments may need to make, not only when employees start coming back, but then also dealing with the public. They're reviewing such items if they need plexiglass, whether they have permanent changes with that or if they're temporary that can move, various signage, are there markings? So very comprehensive surveys are going on, and so far to date we have 15 different departments completed in the county. So nice job to F&O on that. In referring to a lot of the community action items and different items even from the JIC that are in your report, I really want to point to the collective graphic that our public information people have put together. I believe that's on page 178 within your packet. You might have seen this before through county emails, but I think this is a great product and visual that kind of gives you the full picture, again, basically from the beginning of March through May, and how much we've done with the different meals that we've provided, the PPE, the types of calls that we've taken through the various hotlines, and all of the media information that we've been able to get out there to the public and ourselves. So that's just a quick reference sheet. I am now going to go to just the update from emergency management section and touch on a couple items there. One of those happens to be our preparedness and response plan, which is item number 9B in your packet. This response plan was required under one of the governor's executive orders. We are on basically our third iteration. The most recent was approved on May 9th, and we are actually starting on our fourth. Basically what this plan is for us as a county workplace, and what we're doing for our employees, our departments, and then also the public that may come to visit us. So what you see in this plan are a lot of references to our safety precautions that we have in place, or suggested items for departments. It talks about workflow, different ways to have flexible workspace or different service delivery options. As you know, we offered a lot of online services before. Now we offer a whole host of even more that we've added on. We've included our cleaning protocols, not only our daily protocols, but there's cleaning protocols in there that reference if we happen to have a positive case within our department areas. And then also probably one of the largest ones is the employee self-screening, and that we need to go through. That is our plan to date. Also under emergency management, I just want to point out you have an updated sheet in your packet that corresponds with personal protective equipment. To date, we've actually had over 1 million individual items that we've been able to push out to the various response agencies, hospitals, long-term care centers. Fortunately, we're in a position now where we're actually able to do pushes, if you will, and because we have more equipment on hand, so we have regular deliveries where we're reaching out to those entities and staying up with the pace. We have data from them, basically what their needs are on a weekly basis, and we are able to stay up with that. And again, there's an updated spreadsheet in your packet. I'm now going to move on to Finance Department related items. Within this item A, there are 2 budget reports in the package. They're basically the same information. One's just a little more detailed than others. Currently, we have a budget of $155.6 million within the budget, and that's based on all the external funding really that we have received from outside sources that, again, we'll run through in a little bit. What's interesting to note, this is probably one of the first emergencies that I've ever seen where we've actually had so much of a push of money that has just come to us. Most external funding we get or grants that we receive are reimbursement based, but obviously our largest one with the CARES Act, all of that was sent to us already and wired to us. And that seems to be the case in many of these other areas. So we actually have almost $154 million of cash on hand and revenue that's already been received. Our expenditures to date are approximately $5 million. And as Steve alluded to in his presentation, but basically that $5 million and the expenses that we've at least identified going forward and have projected, we believe will be covered through grant funds. Right now, there's no big gaps that we see where with the services that we're delivering now and that we need to keep delivering into the future, there's nothing that we've identified that won't be covered with grant funds. Obviously, we're keeping an eye on that. We're looking for those items that won't be covered, and depending on what they are, obviously trying to identify before we actually expense the funds, where are we going to get the funding source on, base it against the need in the community and things like that. With the budget sheets that you have, one is generated directly from One Solution that outlines the budget and the different line items. And then I asked Steve to actually basically recreate that same budget in Excel format. And you'll see that it has a comment section on the right-hand side. And we just thought that might be helpful so that you have a little more detail on what those line items include. Obviously, payroll, fringe benefits, those speak for themselves. That's based off of overtime, reassignments, people that are dedicated to responding to COVID. Our COVID time is in there. Our hazard pay or crisis pay is all included within this budget. So hopefully that's a detailed report that helps provide some information on not only where the funds are coming from, but also what our expenditures are. I just listed in this packet previous budget amendments, just trying to keep everything together. You'll notice that all the budget amendments, whether previous or ones up for ratification today, do add up to the revenue amount in the One Solution report that you have in front of you. I do want to comment on the small business grant, the original one that we had for $900,000. I know there was a question from the commissioners about getting a list of businesses of who have awards, so that was included in your packet. I'll be honest, I couldn't remember if we sent that to you via email. I know we sent the criteria one day, but I just wanted to make sure that you had that list in your packet for today. I'm going to move on to the current budget amendments that you have before you. Again, I'm following along my report. The first one that I'm going to speak to is actually item 9F in the agenda, and it's for the roughly $1.6 million for the Community Services Block Grant. This is for Macomb Community Action, and this is actually an expansion of a current grant program that they have. It's a normal grant program, and the funds for that program are for emergency needs. They take care of food insecurity, housing, utility bills, medical transportation, items like that. Next is again Community Action Grant for $10,000 from AT&T donation. That's item G. That was provided to the county for emergency financial assistance, and that will be provided to individuals and families in the form of $100 gift cards. Next is MCA DTE donation in the amount of $19,255. That's item D in your packet. Again, that's for emergency financial assistance, and that's actually to expand support for those individuals who may not normally qualify for programs through MCA. So obviously a lot of these grants are recognizing with all the financial troubles, unemployment that is out there, that some of these programs need to be expanded to hit other people. So that is what those funds will go towards. Next, we have a donation from the Balmer Group. That is for MCA is to receive $50,000, and Macomb St. Clair Works is to receive $100,000 through that donation. That is going to be for, again, direct financial assistance for people who don't qualify for other programs. There's wheelchair ramps in there. There's this concept of quarantine boxes for individuals who end up being positive to COVID and or have to be quarantined for being closely related to someone with that. And again, to give them some assistance while they're in that isolation or quarantine mode. And then also funding for workforce development programs. Next item is for senior services, roughly $112,000 from AAA 1B. This is item 9I in your packet. That is for congregate and home delivered meals. This is, again, an expansion of a program, not necessarily for current people in the program, but to serve others that are having problems. Through this funding, Senior Services is estimating that they'll be able to help another 1,400 senior residents and get another almost 17,000 meals out to them. Next item is Senior Services Meals on Wheels, $7,000 from Meals on Wheels of America. This is item J, and this is being used to purchase refrigerated bags. They've realized that they had a shortage in some of the delivery services that they're doing, also since they have to now provide congregate care meals in a different way where they're not actually going to a location and serving the meals within a lunchroom area or something like that. So they are going to spend that $7,000 on those types of cooler bags. And then last and not least, again, at least in my order, it's item number C, is the large CARES Act funding in roughly the $152 million. This grant, we're looking at it covering short-term and some long-term projects and goals. This funding was received at the end of April, I think April 24th. It actually was wired to us. These funds have to be used by December 31st. We're actively working with our legislative partners to see if potentially that time frame can be adjusted and extended. It's a very short time frame to spend that amount of money. So hopefully we can be successful in that area. We are already working with Plant Moran, our county auditors. We've had several conversations with them to help us vet our project areas for eligibility and compliance. They actually have a meeting scheduled with us and some other counties to take a look at this as well and do some comparison and kind of share where we're at already with the projects that we have. Within our project areas, again, some of the money's already covered, like the $5 million for payroll, PPE, different cleaning supplies that we have, cleaning that's gone on in the facilities. And then we also have, some of the other larger areas that we are planning for with these funds. We have different categories that we have set up for the use of this funding. We have a recoup and prepare category for approximately $24 million in initial projects. This will cover, we have in this category, the payroll expenses, all of our facility protections that I talked about earlier, and IT enhancements. That's probably one area that we're looking at to make some strides, not only in our county infrastructure, but with the remote work that we've been doing and will more than likely continue to do, make some long-standing changes there. So there's several projects within there that we're looking at. There is, of course, a public health category of $15 million. We're going to shortly be ramping up more of our testing processes within the county with some partnerships with local agencies and the state. We have to be forward thinking and think that we're going to have to test until a vaccine comes out. So that's a long-term project to be able to provide those services. When the vaccine comes out, we have to think of that program as well and participating in that and running vaccination clinics within the county. Also within this area is where our PPE would fall under, our facility cleaning. And then also one of the items we identified as part of the pandemic is that we did not have enough more capacity. So we're looking at plans to expand the morgue basically from 20 to 60. Support for the local municipalities, we have $10 million set aside. Essentially, it's going to be a reimbursement type program. We have allocations to the local jurisdictions based not only on their population, but also their percent of COVID positive cases within the county. So we'll be starting that program and reaching out to them shortly. They'll basically have to follow the same grant requirements that we do of items that are eligible. The support for vulnerable populations, obviously that includes a lot of projects that we've already been doing, services that are normal. But again, these are long-term projects. For looking where these people are at and finding different solutions to help them along the way. So we intend to keep up with the food program, Meals on Wheels, programs like that. We have senior care packages that we've been getting out. We want to make that program more robust. And then offering financial assistance. We have consideration for the schools and what they're going through. So those are some of the projects covered in that for just about 16 million. And then our largest area is our support for small businesses. We have this broken down into 3 or 4 different programs or phases, if you will. One of those includes PPE support and getting out PPE care packages. Obviously, the small businesses, prior to opening up, they have to have those PPE supplies for their personnel and their customers. So we want to make that available again as a county, as we stated before. Much easier for us to probably procure than it is for a small business. So it has advantages on both sides. And again, there'll be 3 other programs very much similar to the first round of small business relief that we did with the $900,000 that we had, that will run through that program. And we're hoping to start the small business program in June. That'll be a program that kicks off. We're in the works right now, working with planning, also working with Plant and Moran, are going to give some support in that area and helping us with the criteria. And also we're looking at utilizing them to help vet us with the actual applications once those come back in. Moving on to our agreements and contracts. These are items P, Q, and R. The three that you have before you are all for testing supplies and lab services. This process took quite a while, as we know, nationally and obviously locally. Lab supplies and lab capacity has been difficult to procure because of such demand. So fortunately, the health department worked on this, and they came up with 3 different labs that we were able to get services from. So we're fortunate for that. Quest Diagnostics is actually a current vendor with the health department. They use for other programs that they have, and then the other 2 are new to us. But we do have those services being provided to us. And basically, how this works is based off of supply and demand. So generally, they'll send us an initial allotment of kits, say 100, maybe 200 kits. And then once we start getting testing going on within the community and we start sending those samples back to them, then they will start to supply us with more. So again, because of that supply and demand, we thought it would be best to have 3 different sources to keep us going. Obviously, we don't want to have a bunch of kits sitting around, and then we also don't want to run into an issue where a lab might only be able to process 100 samples a day, but they have 25 other different health departments that they're working with. So this was a very detailed process that the health department had to work through. The last piece is as part of finance, and basically almost all of them except the last one that are on the agenda. These are the purchases and services that we did since the onset. So the first one is the KN95 masks that we had purchases in for roughly $1.7 million. We used 2 vendors for this process, and we procured right around 620,000 masks. Our surgical procedure masks came from 2 vendors as well. We've purchased 150,000 of those types of masks for a cost of $112,500. Isolation gowns, we were able to find 2 vendors for that. That was a hard commodity, still is, but it has gotten better. We have 2 vendors that we purchased from, basically 25,000 gowns for $120,000. Touchless thermometers, we spent roughly $75,000 through 3 different vendors. We purchased 855 thermometers. Basically, we have those on hand for departments, personnel to use. We have placed some of those within our long-term care centers and nursing homes to be able to make sure that they had those tools as well. We had 3 purchases from Gleaners Food Bank for food supplies. This is a normal vendor and normal source, but due to the scarceness of other food supplies and the increase in demand, we needed to make these purchases to keep that program moving forward. And then our last item was for facility cleaning in approximately $714,000. That was with Jarvis. They basically came through, if you remember, every county facility when we started going remote and having our personnel work from home. They basically came in and cleaned initially every county facility, and that is what those bills are for. In particular with Jarvis, we are working on quotes from 2 other vendors to have in place. Jarvis, we had an emergency vendor agreement with already, so that was a quick and easy solution for us early on. But with all of these items, and as you can tell in the individual packets, purchasing and Brandon did a great job in trying to find quotes where they could. They have a whole host of other detailed information that they are using as we move forward. And you can see the vendors they purchased from, but there are some new vendors added to each of those items as well that they're going to keep moving back and forth from. And sometimes with the vendors, as you know, it was hard to come by. And then even moving forward as more vendors came on board, Sometime they talk to a vendor and a vendor may have only 10,000, and we might have needed 100,000 of something, for example, but because of the quick turnaround, we go ahead and at least get the 10,000 because we know that it would be coming in, and we go to another vendor that could supply us with 90,000. There was timing on their delivery. Many vendors that they talked to wanted money up front. And when you're looking at some of the dollars, that concerned us. So again, they did a really good job of vetting these items. I'm going to move on to a quick update with just some health department related items. As of today, we have 6,515 cases, positive cases, 766 deaths, and 4,500 people have recovered. Obviously, there is the decline in our cases, which is good. The flattening of the curve is working, and we hope by keeping all of our other CDC guidance in place with social distancing, cleaning, use of PPE, remote work, that will be able to keep that curve down and that trend going forward. One of the largest items that the health department did in the past few months was getting to their disease investigations. They did almost 5,000 residents within this time period, and making the phone calls and following up on them and seeing where they're at. They contacted another 4,200 residents who were considered close contacts to those positive cases, and were able to do those investigations and tracing. They've greatly increased the number of health department employees that they have trained to do the contract tracing. They now have 60 in-house. So that's great for where we're at now, but also in case we have a slight uptick, they'll be able to handle more of those investigations. And then another large area is all the work that they have done with the long-term care and congregate care sites. Obviously, there's a lot of talk and a lot of concern of the people that are within those locations. Obviously, they're medically fragile. A lot of concern about not only the employees, obviously, contracting COVID and being positive when they come into work, but then also with the patients and how that can spread. So the health department's done a wonderful job partnering with these sites. We're also going to be partnering with the state and the National Guard to help do some testing within some of the sites that are willing to have them come out. And hopefully within the next week or so, we're going to be launching a program and partnering with MedStar and potentially more EMS agencies in the future, where they're going out on our behalf to do testing as well. So we want to make sure, obviously, that's why we had to wait till we got the contracts for the testing kits and lab sources to be able to take on some of this testing ourselves. And we are using basically all the resources we have on hand, both internally and externally, to move forward with our testing program. I am now, a lot of information, a lot of departments doing great things, but again, for the sake of time, I will move on to essentially in my report, last item L, which ties into somewhat our plans for the future and also tie into our continued need for the emergency declaration extension. As you know, item S, we're asking for an extension till June 26th. What we're looking at not only now but going forward is the governor continues to have stay-at-home orders and workplace safety orders in place. If you've been able to check any of those out, she's actually, her stay-at-home order, she actually has split into two, and that's really where the workplace order comes into play. They're very long documents, but while she continues to open back up the economy, there are more and more workplace restrictions that are taking place. Again, that's to keep the curve down. So that while that's good for the economy, it also puts a burden on the workplaces to be able to comply with those restrictions, but also then, you know, more importantly, keep their employees safe and keep their client safe as well. For ourselves, we're continuing to promote the remote work. That's actually one of the requirements in her stay-at-home order and in her workplace safety order. Is like that's a top priority to not bring people back in. So we're doing that again. We're making a lot of gains. IT got a lot of people out and a lot of inventions out quickly. They're now starting to come back and put into place some more secure solutions, some more long-term solutions that are beneficial to the employees and services being provided. Obviously, the facility protections that we have to undergo, not only is that a long process for the surveys, but just getting that work completed. In this area, we're running into problems just like the PPE on trying to source some of those materials. So some of that may take longer than normal to actually get in place and have those protections. The PPE purchases and cleaning supplies, again, that is going to go on for a number of months. Not only are we looking at, keeping our first responders, our departments and our personnel, as well as hospitals, long-term care centers, stocked and at least helping them in some capacity. We are also, again, in a good position to be able to start creating a stockpile or a cache so that if there is a second wave, we won't be in this mad scramble for PPE. That we'll be able to have that on hand and get that out the door relatively quickly. For us, too, as a workplace, one of the biggest areas is also reassignment. As you know, we have a lot of personnel that we've reassigned or they've been retasked not only within their own department to focus on that department's COVID response, but also from other departments that are able to allow us to use and reassign other personnel or have them volunteer for a reassignment. So that's something with the Meals on Wheels program is an example that we expect to continue. F&O staff currently, in addition, now we've been able to keep up with the twice-a-day cleaning and then F&O going in and doing a deeper cleaning if needed. That's because they've been able to take maybe painters or carpenters and have them supplement their regular custodians to get that type of work done. And then probably another area that we're going to be moving into is this whole financial piece and all of the grants that we're receiving and all the tracking that needs to be done. We know individual departments have very savvy financial people that know our systems and have a skill set that we're going to be pulling into the bigger picture to help us manage that. So that's very important to be able to do that and concentrate on that. Currently, if you're keeping track, we have 13 different grants that we're managing for roughly the $155 million. I can tell you in the hopper, I believe we almost have another 8 or 9 that are going to be coming into play. And that doesn't even include the FEMA grant or things like that we're used to. So again, quite a bit of different funding sources, each with their own eligibility and guidance and spending parameters that we need to manage. I already talked about the PPE. I've talked a little bit about the testing. I do just want to mention a couple of those partnerships that we're working on. One is with the state. They have a program called Moonshot, and where they'd like to partner with us to do a drive-through site in the county. So we are meeting with them to do a community-based program. We are ready to do our own if that partnership doesn't work out with the state, but obviously it's very advantageous if we can partner with the state for a number of reasons. So that's why we're going down that road right now. And then the state also talked to us about another program for neighborhoods. They have, on their own, they've selected different neighborhoods throughout the state. It's part of their diversity program and work group that the governor created. And right now they have by zip code, they've identified 2 jurisdictions within Macomb County where they're looking to partner with those jurisdictions and do neighborhood sites. Those would be more walk-ups and not a drive-through. And right now those are East Point and Roseville. So we're in talks with them. I know they're in talks with the local jurisdictions too about what that would look like. They want a grassroots approach, but of course we've told them and the locals that, you know, we're in a partnership with them as well. And we've also talked to the state about maybe doing that in some other areas as well. So more to follow. I talked about the vaccination program. Again, if that happens, that's long term. The last time we did a large-scale vaccination program, if anyone remembers, was H1N1. During that time frame, we set up a site over at Freedom Hill and ran that for a number of months. So we have good history there, good track record to be able to do that. So when that program rolls out, we should be in good shape to plan for that. Obviously, our healthcare system is in better shape now. They're basically in the recovery mode. Their bed status is open. They're doing a lot of encouragement for people to come back into the ERs. Hey, if you have an emergency, we're here, we're open. You don't need to stay away. They're starting to get back to some of their other types of surgeries and opening back up. But obviously, if we have another wave, that's a huge concern for us, that they have a flux of patients again. So that's why, too, the more programs we can get in place to try to minimize that the next time around would be great on all of our behalf. Obviously, have the effects on the business and unemployment community. We have a lot of programs going through there, but again, that is probably going to continue for months where businesses will struggle to not only even just reopen, but to stay open. Obviously, issues with unemployment and people who continue to be on those programs. Many people who've never been on that program before find themselves on those programs and needing that type of assistance. And really the same categories for our vulnerable population. And same thing, we have to have sustainable programs, look where they're at for the long haul, try to make sure that they're getting not only the services that they need for food, housing assistance, but we're looking at more intervention on the testing side, making sure that they're getting access to medical care. You know, we have plans and have talked about in case some of our homeless population test positive, do we have a place where they could go and be put in quarantine? We're working with our homeless coalition, and just one example of that I'd like to share just from McRest, when you start talking about future planning and semi getting back to normal. Right now they're using hotels, and fortunately there's funding on their side and our side for those types of reimbursements. But that getting back to normal and trying to work with their church system again, some of the items we've talked about with them is that's great, but then you have to provide PPE to the people in the church. You have to make sure that those places are getting cleaned. Again, bringing testing in for their clients. Again, looking at that long term, is that sustainable, and what is the best program for that population? And with that, I am essentially done with the update report, and I will turn it back over to you, Chair Smith, on how you would best like to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. Well, we have a motion for A and B. So why don't we go through and see if there's any question on the preparedness plan or the emergency update A and B. I don't see anybody asking to speak, and I might be missing it, but if you've asked to speak, you should ask to speak on either A or B. So I don't have anybody on. Please speak up if you're somewhere and you think you would like to speak, but I'm just not seeing you.
Chair Smith, there is actually a list of speakers.
Okay,
Yes.
well,
could you hit the blue details button?
Yep. All right, try this again. I've been clicking back and forth for a while.
This is Veronica. Mike, I agree with him. I hit it and there was nobody, and then there was me. There was a couple times there was nobody, and I knew that there were speakers. So I don't know what that was about, but I can see the list now.
Mike, I can't see it. So why don't you, on A and B only right now, since that's what we have a motion on, can you go through the list? Because I'm going to tell you, I keep clicking detail and clicking on A and or B, and I don't have any speakers on my screen. So.
Okay. Well, the first speaker is Commissioner Kleinfeld, and then also just remember, Commissioner Smith, you don't need to click A or B. It's the blue details button in the bottom right. That's the one.
Got it.
Okay.
Right, Commissioner.
Yeah, these are far more generalized questions than the things below. The first one is, well, there's a couple of them with respect to the working with McRest and the homeless population. Is there anything being done to set them up to get the checks that they're supposed to be getting from the federal government that everybody's supposed to be getting? And the second one with respect to that is, are we by chance taking advantage of getting the census filled out with those people while we're working with McRest on this?
Yeah.
As to your census question, yes. Very active in our entire census campaign, but yes, we're doing that. And yes, we're in our conversations with McRest or other homeless partner organizations that we have. Yeah, there's ongoing discussions of other funding sources that they have, and then using ours to any funding that we have to supplement and fill any gaps that they may not be getting from those other funding sources.
You know how every man, woman, and child is, everybody's supposed to get this $1,200. That applies to the homeless population, but they don't have an address to send it to. So I was hoping that we were going to set up a system. I talked about it last month about how do we get that money to those individuals. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that's not part of the conversation yet.
No. Ernest or Brandon, do you know, since you've been working with them direct? If you've talked about that.
This is Ernest from Macomb Community Action. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I do know, as far as the census, the homeless organizations themselves are the responders for the population that stays with them. So I know they're working directly with the regional census field office on making sure that they have a place to be counted and understand the procedure. And usually, the transient homeless population that is not encountering those homeless organizations are the harder ones to count. If they're encountering some of our great homeless providers in Macomb County, they will likely have a higher response rate than your average citizen.
Yeah, she answered the census question. My question was about the fact that everybody's getting $1,200 from the federal government and they're actually eligible for that money. And I don't see anybody discussing how to get it to them.
Most of the homeless organizations have a very robust case management system with case managers assigned to any client that interacts with the homeless organization. And I believe the case managers have that on their list to make sure they're receiving any eligible public assistance that they can receive. But I will follow up directly with them to make sure that updated unemployment insurance is on their checklist. But I do believe it is part of their case management process.
Okay, thank you. I don't think it's the unemployment, but it's just that $1,200 stimulus. But Vicki, with respect to the death rate relative to the cases positive, I thought as we got testing going, we would expect a jump in the cases positive, but we would expect a decline in the ratio between the two, and we're not seeing that. When do you see us actually being able, so that tells me we're really only testing those that are already sick, and that's driving up the death rate ratio. When do you see more widespread testing really kicking in?
Bill, do you want to address that?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
I think, Commissioner, testing has, over the last couple of weeks, significantly increased. We've seen the numbers, not just in Michigan, but also Macomb increased over the last couple of weeks as more kits have been becoming available. So we do know, and we are waiting on this site that Vicki talked about with a large testing site in Macomb. The state is trying to get a half a dozen of these across the state, so Macomb is on the list. And we heard today that they have actually have received bids and are looking at selecting the vendor to do that. So once the vendor is selected, this should move relatively quickly to get that set up, as well as the neighborhood sites that Vicki described. So that's going to significantly increase.
Okay.
As far as the ratio on the deaths, that ratio you're looking at is the percent of deaths per positive cases. Is that the ratio you're looking at? And yes, we're high on that. And I think what's driven that, unfortunately, is the deaths we've seen in our elderly population. I think our average age on that is higher than others, and that's one of the factors.
I don't think that's what's driving it, Bill. What I think is driving it is people that have it aren't getting tested. And so by the time somebody gets tested, they're already very sick, which is driving up that ratio. A lot of people were told to shelter at home and not try to do anything, try to ride through it. So I think the ratio is way off. And if we got more widespread testing, I think you'd see that ratio drop.
Well, no, I was referring to the ratio based on the number of cases. We do know, yes, there's many more cases, as you said, that for people that didn't get tested. You are correct. A lot of people did not get tested, and they're not showing up in there.
That ratio. And I know JP's on. I don't need to talk to him, but I haven't been able to talk to him, and I needed to let him know that Mac will not be coming to Macomb County in June because of this situation. So in case he's stepped away, I'm sure somebody will share that message with him. I only have
Commissioner Kleinfeld, thank you for the heads up. We've been in communication with Steve and the team over at MAC, not only on that issue, but also assisting them with some policy and advocacy. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And obviously, because of MAC, I know about the Meyer donation. I was curious, when you get it, it's for the commissioners, it's N95 masks. It's a large quantity. I don't know if you've gotten them, but what kind of controls do you have, or how do you put controls in place for these large physical donations that come in that wouldn't be run through the budget like the money?
Well, we're keeping track of those separately, what we've gotten donated versus what we have purchased, and all that will be part of our financial reporting process and working with Plant Moran at the end for providing value to those donations. So we're tracking those separately, and that's why we kind of have been doing that since the beginning. We're aware of the donation piece.
Okay. And then my last thing is, you know, there's been this discussion about the nursing homes, and I know Martha T had sent a letter out that there was an executive order from the governor that they had to take COVID patients that weren't originally their patients that went to the hospital and came back. They had to accept COVID patients because of the concern about an overrun at the hospital. And there was a story on the news last night about this, and it was another facility manager that was complaining about this, and then the governor's spokesperson said that order never went out. Do you guys know which information is correct on that? I can't find the governor's order on it, but I've certainly heard that there is an order that Martha T and other facilities like it have to take these COVID patients from the hospital. What do you guys know about that?
I'll let Bill chime in too, but my recollection is it was not a mandate, but that they did survey long-term care centers in the state, and were asking them to take COVID patients and if they'd be available to take COVID patients. But I don't recall seeing that in executive order. But Bill, can you chime in too?
You know, I think there was not an executive order from the governor. There may have been a directive from the state health director that was issued that not only described the hubs, but I think also describes that situation that you're talking about. So I can look for that and Vicki, get that to you if needed.
Yeah, if you could, I'm getting phone calls from residents on it, and there's some pretty angry people about it. And if it's not directly out of an executive order from the governor, that's not the information that they have. That's what went out to the family members of Martha T. Berry patients. So I would like to be able to set the record straight on that. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you very much for everything you guys are doing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hawk.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to stick to your request on speaking to A and B, which is the update on the COVID-19 emergency in the Macomb County Preparedness and Response Plan. I was looking for words or a word to describe Vicki and her team on what's been accomplished. The presentation we have on not only the update on the emergency, but the plans going forth, I can only put into one word, which is phenomenal. Caught in a situation that not only the cities, the states, the county, and the world has never seen, the job that our team in Macomb County has accomplished. And I've probably not seen a more detailed report on the response plan, Vicki, than what you have here in front of us. So all I wanted to say on items A and B was congratulations to you and your team, and keep up the good work because we're going to need it moving forward. So God bless and stay safe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Duche.
Hello? Am I up?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vicki,
Commissioner Duche,
tremendous
you're up.
report. Hello? Yes, Vicki, I
you're
want to
here
commend
still.
you on your report. You did a tremendous job. You'd be hard pressed to find anybody else who can give a report like that, and with the detail that you've given us. A couple of things. One, and you've probably heard this before, is there, apparently Oakland County has drive-up testing. Are we close to having something like that in Macomb County? That's number one. Two, it's good to see that Meals on Wheels is moving along. We've had a problem. Third is with the nursing homes. Martha T. had 20 people succumb to COVID out of 200 people that were there, so it's about 10%. Are we seeing about 10% at other nursing home facilities? And after that, the last question is, do we have room in the hospitals that are in Macomb County, or are we filled up? Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for your comments, and you too, Commissioner Ha. In regards to the testing, our plans with our congregate care sites, which will be having teams go out to them, should be starting within the next couple weeks. And I believe with Bill, we're getting closer with the state, and since they've selected a vendor now and looking at vendors for the drive-through testing site, I'm hoping that we'd be able to get that set up within the next couple weeks as well. They already have information and vetting for the site that we've looked at on things of that nature. So there's a lot of the logistics worked out already on that. Now, one of the things we've been fortunate on the testing side is that there have been initially the hospitals were doing very aggressive testing. And then we've also had a number of private resources set up testing sites as well. So that's really been able to help us in that vein while we are waiting to get hold of some of the lab supplies. In regard to, I'm going to jump to the hospital capacity. Yes, they have capacity at this time. Again, not only for normal services, but also if they still receive positive COVID patients. So very much at a more stable point for where they're at. But obviously, that's why the situation's so precarious, and that we continue to keep our numbers down, keep continuing to flatten that curve and follow all of the CDC guidance and all those provisions, so that we don't see a large spike. Again, we won't be caught off guard this time around, but it could still be troublesome if we get a large spike and a wave of cases. In regards to your Martha T. Berry stats and your questions about the long-term care centers, I'm going to ask Bill to respond to that, and if he knows.
First, let me say, I think it's Executive Order 50 is where the governor talked about the long-term care facilities to the previous, but again, I don't know if some of those orders were rescinded and replaced, but that's where the one talking about long-term care facilities. As far as deaths in long-term care facilities, as I said, they've been probably attributing about 39% of the total deaths from COVID-19. I really don't know if that percent that you referred to, and I know you said 20 out of the 200, but we don't know if that denominator of 200 is seeing over the time being. They may have had more people in and out of the facility over the last 2 to 3 months. I don't know if that number is accurate, but number of facilities, yes, we've had, unfortunately, deaths in most of the skilled nursing facilities. We have 29 skilled nursing facilities in Macomb. These are the ones that are similar to Martha T, where we have a lot of vulnerable people. They're different than our assisted living facilities because most of these people in the skilled ones need a significant amount of medical care. And they've been the most vulnerable. So I don't have on an average how many, but I would have to say, it could be somewhere between, maybe some have had just a couple of deaths and some have had maybe up to 20, 25. I don't have that data in front of me.
Fair enough. Thank you, Bill. I'm just quoting the number that Kevin Evans gave us yesterday, that they've had 20 people in the facility pass, and it's been right about 200 people that are in the facility itself, 200 to 217. Keep doing what you're doing. I think you guys are doing a yeoman's job. Couldn't be prouder of the team that is working on this. Keep up the good work. I'm very happy that you people are working for Macomb County and not somebody else. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the Steve Schmeigel. Steve, are you available?
I am. I'm
okay.
Can you hear me now?
I certainly can. Thank you. Given how are you managing the additional workflow of all the additional grants coming into the county? I mean, there's definitely a higher frequency, and certainly the dollar values are much higher than what we've seen in the past. How is your office managing that? Do you have assigned staff that's just dedicated to this project, this area alone? How are you accounting for all the money that's coming through and tracking it and managing all the various strains that are involved with this process?
Well, it certainly is an extra workload. We are distributing those duties throughout, my office to various folks. A number of these grants you'll see pertain to, say, community action, specifically, or the health department. So those folks have, some decentralized accounting functions themselves that they can spread that work among. Our big challenge here is going to be trying to engage with other departments as we can to track and monitor the accounting for the CARES money. Obviously, there's several different categories of expenditures for a large amount of money, and we'll be working and trying, to reach out to other departments to pull in some resources if we need to try to keep track of that particular source of funding. That's probably the largest challenge that my office will face, and the county. I'll just say that the county is going to face in terms of managing all the different aspects of that CARES funding.
Yeah, that large amount of money is a lot of money to be responsible for, and making sure that it's spent, properly and accounted for properly, and is definitely a concern time a large amount of money comes into a system like this. So I don't envy your job, and the whole team has done such an outstanding. The report today, by the way, going back to Vicky, great job. And there's so many things that have happened that have seemingly happened flawlessly. That have worked so well. It's a credit to the whole team. But there's a lot to keep together and manage, and there's a lot of players and all that. The PP. This is a question for Vicky. We have a report on the PPE that's come into the county for the various things. Is there any surplus? What are we doing with surplus? Do we have surplus that we have been asked to share, or are there shortages in PPE that we need? And what are we doing with whether it's a surplus or maybe a deficit? Because there was a big talk earlier on about no one had enough, and then the system was flooded with equipment, and now we have it. Do we have enough? And if we have too much, what are we doing with it?
Yeah, we don't have too much. We're still going to be acquiring more PPE over the coming months. Right now, we're able to meet the demand that is out there from our local first responders and medical and healthcare groups and for our own people. But we are going to continue to stockpile. So
now,
we're going to
the local first responders that we're helping supply PPE to. When I hear first responders, I think of police and fire, but that's not necessarily that. It's a bigger group than that, though, right? Or maybe they're not even included in that.
No, it is first responders. It's police, fire, EMS, traditionally, and even the private EMS agencies. So they're included in that group as frontline workers.
Okay.
So yes, they're part of that, and then as well as for our own staff. And then again, our focus is on the health and medical, and making sure that, that if they need to come to us, that we have something to be able to give to them. And again, we're going to keep acquiring and placing orders over the next several months, and probably also expanding that a little bit to other groups, especially those vulnerable populations. The flow is better. It's not, to the point where it was pre-COVID, but we're not within that crisis mode where we're scrambling anymore. We have good vendors in place, and the ability for them to supply is much better.
Excellent. Now, some communities in the county operate independent of the Macomb County. The townships rely on this for a lot of things. Some of the smaller municipalities rely on this, but big communities like Warren, Sterling Heights, maybe Clinton Township to a degree, they've done their own thing. They don't need the county to help be involved in the administration of various things. Are they part of this PPE disbursement program, or are they doing their own? Do they have a direct line to the system?
Yeah, well, with the Warren and Clinton Township have their own emergency management program, so everybody else in the county is part of our program. But as we've done for, you know, the last several years since I've been here, we include everybody. Again, some of the locals have, you know, been purchasing their own, but in these situations, we all pull together. You know, decision was made. We have, you know, more advantages buying together. And, you know, we work really well in sharing our resources. So that this part of the process has gone extremely well.
Very good. Now, some of the CARES money is going to communities to reimburse them for their expenses. And there's a lot of information that come up. Maybe I missed it, but do we have an accounting of where that money is going to the various communities? Say the Clinton Township, the Washington Township, the Richmond Town. Is there an accounting yet as to where that money is going to, and for what is it? For what purpose it's being sent to them for?
Yeah, we should.
Not yet started.
Yeah, no, we should have that finalized and available next week, and to get out to the jurisdictions. And that will all be reimbursement based and very similar, you know, eligibility, or it will be the same eligibility criteria that we have. So we're expecting, you know, that if they did purchase any PP on their own, that would qualify. If they've had any overtime expenses, if any of them have done any type of hazard pay, those same payroll expenses would apply. We know the jurisdictions have done cleaning. You know, they've provided those services as well as cleaning supplies. There's one or two jurisdictions that have instituted some of their own testing programs with their employees. So if they've paid for that, that'll be eligible under the CARES Act. And it will be a reimbursement program. We'll set up that process with them, the forms that they need to provide, as well as all of their documentation. That's one of the
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it's one of the areas too we talked to Plant Moran about as well, in lockstep, because they're an auditor for I believe a majority of the locals. So we will all be in lockstep in that process of what is required for compliance and then any future auditing purposes.
Excellent. There's that's a very good thing to know about. Well, we'll obviously receive a report, given the detailed report you've given us today. I expect we'll continue to receive those going forward as those monies are dispersed, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Also, the business business relief program that was there. There's a listing of some businesses that were received money, but we didn't have enough money to go around to cover all the requests. Do we have is there a waiting list? Can someone speak to how that, are they waiting for more money to come down the pike? There are a lot of business in Macomb County, and the list that we had there was impressive, but there's probably a lot more than that out there that were hurt by all this. Is there, can anyone speak to that, as to where it's at?
Yeah, JP's here. He can answer that.
Commissioner Brown, thanks for the question. Absolutely. We've already begun to review the preliminary list of applicants that came through the first round of funding with the Small Business Relief Program of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Planning and Economic Development in developing the new criteria under the CARES Act is not only looking at eligibility requirements, but mirroring the program that we stood up the first go round to ensure that we can open up these funds to those remainder businesses that were not in the first batch of funding. We're not only assessing eligibility criteria, screening, and applications, but we've done a preliminary synopsis, and that would inject an additional $600,000 to local businesses that had the preliminary request that came in on that end. As Vicki highlighted earlier in the presentation, our objective is to ensure that we have the program entirely operational by mid-June, and then ensure that every single step can be audited and be in strict compliance with the assistance of Plant Moran, as they're the county's independent auditors. So yes, we are very much exploring that and going to open up to a larger pool of applicants too.
Are we working with the chambers of commerce, someone from the local business community to make sure that we're, coordinating with what they see as the needs out there. I mean,
Yes. Yep.
All right.
Absolutely, Commissioner Brown. We not only have been working with them, but just this week we also set up the Macomb Open for Business initiative, which is in direct coordination with our local chambers, where we are trying to celebrate local businesses that are open throughout the county and also inject additional resources that came in through Michigan Schools and Government Credit Union for some business stabilization funds.
Okay. Well, thank you, JP. I appreciate that. I spoke with Vicki Rad, and she gave me a great detailed report conversation the other day about some of these items. It was helpful. The whole report's been very helpful, and it gives me confidence that when we come to extending the executive order for the county executive, that in the last order that we passed, the last resolution we passed, it called for reporting to the board on the various items, and certainly you've hit the mark. And I've been in full support of extending the order to give you the latitude and to do the things that we need to do in this unusual time to continue on, and largely because it was the good reporting we've had back from the administration on all the things that are going on and the crack staff that we have. So thank you very much. And that's all my questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Drollet.
Mr. Chair, my question is on item C, not A or B, so I'll pass and wait till item C. I guess I've been pushing too many buttons here.
It does seem like everybody's kind of opened up to all the questions. So since we've already done it, we've already kind of broken that seal, so to speak. Why don't we run through the rest of the questions while we're here right now on these items. So if you want to go on C, that's fine.
Okay, I appreciate that. First, I haven't seen that list of the 900,000 that was distributed to businesses prior. I know it was sent to us, but for some reason I'm not finding it under my tabs. I don't know if it's in part of today's packet or was sent separately.
Yeah, Commissioner Drollet, it should be in your packet.
Okay, I'll dig through a little further, and I'm sure I'll find it. I guess my question is this. It seems to me that one of the biggest challenges that we face is certainly we as commissioners face, and also all, the entire county operation, is how do we properly administer the huge multiplication in the number of programs that we are now grappling with regard to these grants, CARES Act, and other grants. How do we ensure they're properly administered, there's proper oversight? All these things are such substantial challenges. Like, for example, if I was put in charge of the biggest component of this, of what's been granted to us, the $70 million for small businesses, I'm sure that I could not execute that completely right. And I believe that I couldn't, but I also believe nobody could. There's some businesses going to get left out. Some businesses going to feel somebody else got more. I don't think it's humanly possible to do it to anything close to perfection. So my sympathy and my understanding is with our team that is trying to do that as best as they possibly can. I also concur with some of the other statements that have been made with regard to the team that we do have. Everybody involved, and Vicki in particular. I mean, probably the best use of this federal funding we could have is to clone some of the people that we have, helping deal with these issues and helping deal with administering these programs so that other counties could get the benefit that we have. But I will say this, as a single commissioner whose job it is to oversee the spending, in some ways, this is like drinking from a fire hose. We're getting $155 million in new funding in the middle of our budget year that we, obviously didn't anticipate at the beginning of the budget year or even a little bit into the budget year. And now we have a group of really great folks doing their absolute best to find a way to execute that as efficiently as possible and as effectively as possible. And I look at myself as having to do my part with regard to oversight of spending. That's the job of commissioners. So what we have so far is incredible, great report provided to us by Steve, by Vicky, by JT, by everybody involved who's giving us, great detail and great explanation. I feel we need to keep up. With that, I'm going to withhold detailed questions on issues like how do we really fairly spend the $70 million on small businesses? Because I don't know if there's an answer yet. I think that our team is still trying to sort that out. But when we get to the final question about extending the emergency declaration, I'm going to offer an amendment to extend it to June 11th. Not because, only because I believe it keeps us commissioners engaged in this process. And I believe that we have to step up and do our part to oversee, monitor, and the best we can. And getting these reports is really been the best way that we can try to do our job and monitor these things. I mean, Steve's report today was excellent. Vicky's report was amazing. I believe we continue to need these reports, especially with the amount of money that's being spent and the challenges that our staff, our county staff is facing, the executive is facing, and that they've been able to step up to from every indication. Absolutely every indication. But I think we need to continue to be there as commissioners, and that we should be there again a little more quickly, and that we should extend this to the 11th when we've got a meeting scheduled, so we can be there again and continue to monitor this. And again, my compliments to the outstanding work that's being done, and my sympathies in a way for folks that are having to drink from this fire hose. For Steve, that's having to find a way to administer. Vicky was trying to find a way to execute these programs with the funding that, at the beginning of the year, no one was expecting that kind of surge in workload. So I want to thank the folks involved and just notify my colleagues that I think we should extend the emergency declaration to June 11th to keep us engaged and to keep us commissioners doing our jobs, which is to do as much monitoring as we possibly can. Given the overwhelming work our staff is putting in, the county staff is putting in, we should put in the kind of work that we can to try and do our best job that we can, because, my God, this is an awful lot of money that's pouring in. And, it's a little bit hard to ride that and try and do it as effectively as possible and keep some sense of oversight. And that's all I have to say. And thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, JT. Thank you, the entire executive team, and for all the work that you guys are doing. And I just let you know that we appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was also going to wait till item C, but since everybody else is jumping on, I'm going to as well. I want to thank the entire team. I spent a lot of time on the phone with JP earlier today because I've had a lot of heartburn all day long over an $89 million line item with very broad stroke categories and comments with the small business, municipal relief, things like that. So JP kind of helped me out a little bit more, and I also explained to him that as one commissioner, I would like to be brought along in this process as best as possible, because as soon as that press conference was done, as soon as that hit the papers, I had business owners contacting me. I had municipal leaders contacting me asking, how do I get this money? What do I need to do to apply? So anything that I can do as a commissioner to help your team out, to help facilitate that message, I would be happy to do. And I know many of my colleagues would as well. My main question, I guess, since many of them have been exhausted and answered already, has to do with CMH. We all know that during COVID-19, obviously physical health has been huge, but from the quote unquote front lines where I'm sitting, dealing with and speaking with folks that haven't received any sort of income since the middle of March, mental health is incredibly important as well. And I know that's in with that $89 million line item. And I was curious if there is a plan for that yet, what that money would be spent on, if there's an idea of what the dollar amount would be, because that is an incredibly important part of all of this, because suicides are going up, depression, anxiety is going up, all because of everything that is happening. So Vicki and the team, I was wondering if there were any tidbits you could give me that I could relay to the CMH board.
At this time, no, we don't have any details on the plan. That's obviously one of the departments we need to get with. We've been working with them, right along. With some of the areas, we knew enough at least to set some funding aside to include them in. But again, that's going to be one of those, there's the need now, but even in that long-term period, how are we going to help support them?
Thank you, Vicki, especially going forward with the hits the state is going to take in their budget, and that's just going to trickle down to us at the local level, especially with CMH, where majority of our funding comes from state and federal dollars. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Vicki, and the whole team, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any other speakers on A and B. I'd like to just say a few things, and then I won't say them on the rest of the items. Obviously, Steve, we're going to be looking at things a lot different in the budget coming up, with everybody now realizing that maybe we can work from home, and remote working might even be a big thing of our future. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are thinking about in the budget as far as that's concerned. And I'm sorry, that's the prior item. But, and Vicki, listen, I know you guys are doing, you like someone mentioned, drinking from a fire hose. So I just want to throw this out at you, and I'm sure you guys are doing this, but when we're looking at masks and all this, all these other supplies that we need, I know that you guys are first and foremost trying to make sure that we can just get any, because that's obviously the most important thing. But I think one of the things we're finding during this pandemic is that most people are starting to realize, if they didn't realize it already, that we don't make anything in the United States anymore. So I'm hoping that when we get to the point where we can be a little more picky, that we're starting to choose products made in the United States, and maybe that would maybe help turn the tide of what we've gone away from in the last 15 or 20 years. So it's really not a question, for you guys, more just a comment. But my question is, I know one of the commissioners is talking about an amendment coming up. I'm just wondering, in lieu of that amendment, if you would, I'm not sure how that's going to go, but would you be interested, or possibly, let's say that we do keep it on the 27th or later in the month, would you be willing to come in on the 10th on our next full board meeting and report whether we're actually needing to extend this order or not? I'm just hoping that maybe we could get that commitment out of you, and that might or might not change anybody's idea on what might happen on the last item on this.
To put the report together takes quite a bit of time, when we start looking at what we're collecting and we're trying to get better and get things in sooner to you, but to make it comprehensive takes a lot of time. So to turn around and do that in 2 weeks, while we have so many other items going on, I think would be difficult. My preference is to go to June 26th as we asked, and maybe if you would like to see a report in particular to the CARES funding amount, we could provide that in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Then it's only one document kind of that we're focusing on, and maybe just do something on the financial realm.
Okay.
If you would, but I'd rather still see the extension, go out for the full month, and maybe we start doing more frequent financial reports to you.
And that's kind of what I was thinking might be a kind of a good mix or a good compromise. But anyway, we're not to that yet. I'm sorry about that. We don't have any other speakers. We have a motion on A and B at this moment. So can we have our, can we have a vote on A and B, please?
That motion passes 13-0.
Mr. Chair, I'd move items C through R in their entirety.
Thank you. We have a second.
You
Support.
unmuted yourself.
All right,
Support
looks like
Duge.
Commissioner Duge has a support. All right, please mute yourself. Thank you. I don't have any speakers. I think everybody's pretty much asked every question of you on this. So seeing no speakers, please vote.
That motion passes 13-0.
You unmuted yourself.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve S for June 26th, 2020.
I will support that.
Support. Okay, I have Duje and Haw on.
I'll support it too.
Well, if we need a third, we'll count you in, Marv.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer an amendment to that motion, please.
Okay. Amendment. Go ahead.
I'd like to amend the motion to extend the order through June the 10th, our next full board, at which time we would request that the executive provide a report on the CARES funding component and also a broad financial update. It's sort of a compromise along the lines of what Vicki Wolberg suggested might be more digestible than the complete report, just focusing on the CARES Act update and the broad finance update. And if it's supported,
okay,
thank you.
Support for that?
I'll support it. Commissioner Kraft.
Okay, Commissioner Kraft. Commissioner Kleinfeld, it looks like I have you up to speak. Commissioner Kleinfeld? Oh. And, all right. Veronica, are you there?
Yeah, for some reason, if I turn the camera off, the audio doesn't work. That's
Okay.
a weird thing. Anyway, she's already indicated that they're not even going to be having it ready to roll out until the beginning of June, and she doesn't have a specific date. So she's really, I don't think they're going to have anything to report back as to any numbers on where it's going and what they're doing. Maybe just a general report on what their plans are, but I just don't see her being able to put that together by then. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going along with Commissioner Kleinfeld. She's asked for the 26th. She's got a lot on her plate coming up. Just for have her come before us to start another report, I think that's foolish. So I'm sorry I can't support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Haw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate whoever made this statement, drinking from the garden hose. Was that yours, Bob? That was a good statement.
The fire hose, but thank you.
Oh, fire hose.
Yes, a little easier to drink out of a garden hose. Go ahead.
The complexity of this report that we have just received and the magnitude of the amount of information, when we have the person that's preparing it indicating I won't have the information possibly available in a 2-week time frame, I cannot support the amendment. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to mention to the board that the State, House, and Senate did not feel the need to extend their emergency extension declaration either. And we are actually still wanting to extend it even with the amended version. We're just asking for a little bit of information in terms of the CARES funding, and I don't see anything wrong with that. And like I said previously, I know JP and I had spoke, and we just want to be brought along in this process and know what's going on, so we're not caught blindsided when our locals are asking us questions that we can't answer. So having said that, I would continue to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Duche.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't support the amendment. First of all, getting a report like Vicki did today is outrageously time consuming. She's done a superb job of it. And even wanting some semblance of something else, there's a whole lot of other things going on in Macomb County other than sitting down and writing and trying to put together a report on this. I think it's a foolish waste of time, and we will get everything that we need at the end of June So I cannot support the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Drollet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have kind of an odd technical question. I'm not sure if Vicky's the one to respond to this, or maybe our corporation counsel, but what would happen if we didn't extend the emergency declaration another day? Would we still get the CARES funding that we've already received? Would we still get the grants that we've already received? What would be the impact of just ending the emergency declaration? What would happen?
You would jeopardize any future funding that we would get from that point forward. You'd be sending a message that we're really not in any emergency mode. So there would be no need for us to continue to do any of the efforts that we've been doing. You would make it much more difficult for any type of response to take place.
Like, how would it be more difficult for responses to take place?
Because we have decisions that fall within the EOC constantly. And some of those need to be made rapidly. And many of them have to do with entering into contracts, making purchases, the ability to freely move staff around that we are. All of that would be negated without the emergency declaration. And the other paths in people's mind, they slow down. Going back to the purchase scenario, again, it's gotten better, but we have vendors that if you don't make a decision after it's been vetted, so I'm not saying we make rash decisions, but if you don't quickly make a decision that, okay, this has been vetted and we can tell that vendor that it's a go and get a PO issued, you go down to the bottom of the barrel. And now you have to figure out again, where do I need to get that from? And what is my response going to be?
Okay, thank you, Vicki. That does answer my question. It's a very good response. Real quick, from Steve, I guess, this $155 million in grants so far, how does that compare to our overall general fund budget? Is it a quarter, a half, 60%? What are we talking about as far as the increase? How this compares to our general fund budget?
It's a little over 55% increase. The general fund budget for this year is about $278 million.
Okay, so we are talking about a 55% increase in our general fund budget. I think that warrants an oversight by the Board of Commissioners. This is not a small increase by any shape, size, or form. This is a 55% increase in our general fund budget that we don't want more frequent reports on. I know it's an additional burden. That's why the amendment pares it down to a broad fiscal update, financial update, and the CARES Act update. I think we owe that to our constituents, even if it unfortunately imposes a little bit more burden on the handling, oversight, and spending of this money. Part of the process is going through a checks, balances, and budget oversight process. That's simply part of spending money. So this is not a small amount of money. I think we owe it to ourselves as commissioners to be that engaged. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So I'm going to say that I do agree with you on this, but I do think I heard Vicki mention that she could give us an update on the CARES budget and a broad update at the next meeting, obviously, because she can't give this kind of an update in 2 weeks. So, I'm hoping that that's what I heard in the last group, that she would be willing to come and talk to us about what what they've done in 2 weeks and what they're thinking about, because we will have a meeting then. And I will say that any order that we do can also, I don't know the law on this specifically, but let's just say we don't get what we want, or we don't, we think things are all of a sudden changed, and when we don't think the order needs to continue, I'm pretty sure that you could vote to rescind the order. And I'm not 100% sure if anyone, legal on the line would correct me, but so I'm going to say that Vicky said she would come and talk to us about this at our next meeting. So I'm going to count on her to come and talk to us on it in the next meeting. And I don't have any other speakers on there. So we are voting on the amendment. So everybody, please vote on the amendment.
Mr. Chair, that motion fails 4-8 with Commissioners Brown, Duge, Sauger, Kleinfeld, Romano, Leonetti, Haw, and Smith voting no.
Thank you. On to, excuse me, I just lost it. On to the original motion for 9S. I imagine we don't have any speakers as to that. We already had a motion, so please vote.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes 11-1 with Commissioner Kraft voting no.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10. We have item 10, Internal Services Committee recommendations. Would anyone like to make a motion on?
Mr. Chair, move those in their entirety.
Right, you have a motion. I have support.
Support.
I'll support Myjack.
Support.
All right, I had Myjack snuck in just before Marv, so we
Okay.
have a motion and support. Any discussion on any of these? I don't see any, so please vote.
That motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Item number 11, Public Records and Public Safety Committee recommendations. I have A and B. Would anyone like to move those individually or together?
I'll make the motion.
Sauger, support.
All right. I think I had Commissioner Myjack supported by Commissioner Sauger. Please vote.
That motion passes 12-1 with Commissioner Kraft voting no.
Thank you. Item 12, Health and Human Services Committee recommendations. I have A through C. Individually or together, I will take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve A through C. Atal.
You unmuted yourself.
Support Duge.
Thank you. I have motion and support. I don't have any conversation up on the link. Please vote.
That motion passes 13-0.
Thank you. Item 13, Public Services Committee recommendations. I have A through H. I will take one.
Move in their entirety, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Was that Commissioner Drollet?
Yeah.
Is that item 15, Mr. Chair?
13.
No, we're at 15, Bob.
I'm sorry, what?
Support for Mr. Drolet.
Did I just head back to the wrong item? What's going on here?
Yeah, we're 15.
Hey, Mike, did you refresh this and we're at, we got rid of a few, so we're down to 13? Mike Keys?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we on 13?
I believe we're on Yeah, I believe we're on 13 Public Services Committee recommendations.
Great. We refreshed and got rid of a couple that didn't have any earlier, so somehow you guys must have missed that change. But we are on item 13, Public Services Committee recommendations. The other committees that were on your original agenda did not have anything for this meeting. They just accidentally came up automatically on your first agenda. So can I have a motion for 13A or any A through H?
Motion by Haw.
Thank you.
Support by Drollet.
Are these in their entirety, Commissioner Haw?
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you. And Commissioner Drollet, that
Yes.
supports for that. Thank you. Thank you. All right, please vote.
That motion passes 13-0.
Okay, can everyone please mute? We're getting a lot of echoing again.
Hello?
Yeah, please mute. 14.
Is this working?
Yes, well, I can hear you. Yes, it is working. I need 14 resolutions. I have A, B, C, and D. Can we have a motion to support, approve any one of those or all of those?
Motion by Romano to approve all in their entirety.
Thank you. I have support. Of course, you can unmute.
Support by Leonetti.
Okay, Mr. Leonetti, thank you. Anyone like to speak on any one of these?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Hahn, Resolution D. I would like to thank the commissioners that provided some input and Crystal's quick reaction time to get the input into the changes to comprehend our discussion we had the other day. So thank you very much for that.
Great. Thank you. I do not have any other speakers on the list, so please vote.
That motion passes 13-0.
Thank you. Item 15, proclamations.
Sauger makes motion approved.
I got you, Mr. Sauger.
Thank you, sir.
Support?
I'll support.
That was Mr. Commissioner Haw. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, please vote.
That motion passes 13-0.
Thank you. Item 16, correspondence from Yo and Yo, a letter to from them. I need a motion to receive and file first.
So move.
Support by?
I'll support Veronica.
Thank you. And I see that you're up to speak on this, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Yes, I just want to let you know the response to that letter from me to Yo and Yo was, as our resolution states, we fully support the cooperation with the Michigan State Police and the Attorney General as long as it is for investigative purposes and not for political purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me double check here to make sure we don't have any other speakers. I don't see any other speakers. We have a motion to receive and file. Please vote.
That motion passes 13-0.
Thank you. Item 17, new business. Any commissioners with new business? Mr. Romano.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if this would fall to new business. It was new business for me, but I originally voted no on the sheriff's office renovation for Macomb. Since then, I've had conversation with some people, and I had altered my vote to show it as a yes. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Haw.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to wish all my fellow commissioners a happy and safe Memorial Day. Thank you.
Thank you. And to you as well. I don't have any other speakers, so we will close new business. Public participation. We are at item 18, public participation. Any members of the public that have stuck with us through this 2 hours and 34 minutes, please unmute yourself and speak. *6. Anybody from public participation, please unmute yourself. It looks like I have Mike Zubis, I believe, on the chat line. Mike, are you there?
Yes, I'm here actually. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, Mike, give us your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes to speak.
All right. My name is Mike Zubis. I live at 322 North Avenue, Apartment 1, and that's located in Mount Clemens, Michigan.
Thank you.
Hopefully, I won't take more than 5 minutes, but I got a few things to say, so I wrote it all down here. For some reason, I always get nervous at these things, even though I'm sitting here in my room. Anyways,
carry on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Anyway, so hello, distinguished members of the commission. I come to you today to discuss an issue that has recently had updates since I've last come before you all. That, of course, being the issue of regional public transit. To be honest, I was amazed to see things work so well, so fast at first. But it was nice to see regional unity. But then, unfortunately, the issue I have to discuss with you today arose. Recently, before this corona-filled mess happened, we had the unfortunate conclusion of not only the constituency of Northern Oakland County stonewalling the idea that would benefit the region, you have them then spinning the idea around in a way to opt out of a great arts institution in a crusade against government funding, which has done nothing but prove that austerity does only bad things to our great nation. What is the most upsetting part of this whole situation is that obviously they have forgotten the story of James Robertson. What made me more mad was that when I remembered, I forgot his name, but not his story. 5 years ago, a man had to walk 21 miles and spend hours of his day every day just to get to work. And in the only place he could find a job as a Detroiter, in Rochester Hills. So when Rochester Hills Mayor Brian Barnett says in an article about him recently in the Freep, and I quote, "Who wants his city to be able to opt out in any regional transit tax approved by the Oakland County voters?" Insists that he's a proponent of regional transit, but he adds that it should be funded at least initially by a coalition of the willing, which is to say communities that are closer to Detroit than his. That was in the article. I think it proves that there is either a disconnect or a willful ignorance of the problem. That problem being it's very hard for Detroiters to work north of Pontiac. Northern Oakland County is just as important to the city of Detroit as the RenCen is. And it's time Oakland County started acting like it. Seriously, if they want their own section of Michigan, they have one thing they can do: move. There's Flint, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Kalamazoo, plenty of other areas that, well, don't have to take all the blame for all the problems that get scapegoated by these individuals. If you don't want to move, great. Then we could work together to make Rochester Hills just as important to Detroit as Richmond or Romeo or Monroe. Or how about South Lyon? Are they their own part of Michigan? Or are they part of the metro region that benefits from a great and storied city? I think they are. And I honestly believe that if we want true, actual unity, instead of thinking about how we can save money by cutting services, how about we find the best way to fund those services that uses the money we can collect the best? The less the government spends on people, the less the people get out of that government. Just look at the federal military budget compared to the rest of it for proof in that regard. Oh, and a major reason why that dam just broke. Then there is the case of the young man who was threatened by a homeowner for asking where the bus route was. Where was that at? Rochester Hills. I'm starting to sense a pattern here. It doesn't look like it doesn't look good for poor black people over there, but boy, does it look good for white people. They get to say that cutting taxes are good. Well, when it in fact hurts lives. But hey, at least we can buy up everything when there's bankruptcies after all this is over. What do they care? This is about the money after all. If this region really cares about itself, it will stop playing games, get rid of those stupid letters next to their names, and work for the cities, townships, and counties that they were elected to help. Unless, of course, like I said, this is about the money. And in turn, racism. then I guess we need to have another kind of talk. All I wanted to talk about was how everyone could find a way to finally have a concrete plan to get buses on roads after this crisis is over. Yes, owning a car may be easier, but for some people, walking is their only option. As long as we continue to pretend that mass transit is a partisan issue and an issue about people being unfairly taxed, which is a logical argument from time to time. In conclusion, think about James Robertson. Not me, not them. That man who walked 21 miles a day just to work. How is that okay in America? That's what I'm trying to talk about. Please think about him and how to make sure that anyone like him never happens again when talking about mass transit in the Metro Detroit region. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? *6 will unmute you. Any other members of the public? And last time, any members of the public? I don't see any members of the public.
You unmuted yourself.
Motion to adjourn by Drolette.
Motion to adjourn, Drolette. Motion to support by Duge. All, please vote. Thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good job. Have a good weekend. Take care, everybody. Safe and good Memorial weekend.